Howdy, in this video you'll see how and from what I made my frame, you'll see the jig that I made specifically to build this frame, and also as a bonus at the end of the video you'll see a couple of secrets that I laid in this frame when building it. First thing you'll see is the jig. I got it up in the attic after I made the frame so it wouldn't get in the way. Before I started building the frame, I was perfectly understanding that I couldn't just weld it on the ground. I needed a jig for this. But with the frame, as in the case of the fork, it seemed that it's gonna be very difficult. In the end, of course, everything turned out to be much simpler than it seemed at first glance. What's up? What's new? How's it going? Now you're in a video. Checked a couple of pictures on the internet and cut out the C-channels out of an old hay trailer. I don't really like going to machine shops, so from the very beginning I wanted to make everything by myself. Basically, these are just two C-channels that are fastened together at the back and front. We have the rear axle post. It's movable and fixed with two bolts, one up front, one in the back. So it's set to the desired position, the bolts are tightened, the C-channels are compressed, and they fix this post in place. We also have a post in the middle of the sub-engine pipes, which is also secured with two bolts, and up front we have a non-adjustable post. It's dead tightened with three bolts and a steering neck pipe is installed on it. Here we can adjust the height and angle of the steering neck. Going into details, between the two C-channels we have a post on which we have two more C-channels, between which the stud is fastened, onto which the neck pipe is installed. If we loosen these bolts, we can adjust the height of the steering neck. When we release this bolt, we adjust the angle of the neck. As I said, I don't like going to turners, so I took some knobs as centering cones, either gear shifting or hydraulic pump knobs out of some UMZ or T40. The downside of plastic cones is when the neck is installed here, it heats up during welding and the cones start to melt, so naturally the metal ones are better. Despite its rusty appearance, it's quite straight. Everything was measured really good while building it, so it's out of square by no more than a millimeter. Well, we've sorted out the jig, now let's move on to the frame. The bike with this frame, engine, gearbox, and this final drive, as you've already seen in the photos in the previous video, was completely murdered, although the engine was in decent condition despite the fact that it was covered in gunk. I got a lot of nipper frames, but I didn't want to cut them, and the frame of this bike was cracked exactly in the places where I wanted to cut, so this old beat-up nipper became the lifeline in the beginning of building this bike. The cracks were all over the place, so it wasn't hard to break off a piece of the old frame and start doing what I wanted. From the original frame remained only the neck pipe, the backbone under the tank, and a few more small parts that I'll show you a little later. Having sawed off all the excess from the old frame, I was left only with the neck and the backbone. Installed all this on a jig and commenced to tinker with it. On the original frame, these two pipes are welded directly to the neck pipe, but from the beginning I wanted to move the neck forward, this way the down pipes ended somewhere here and I needed longer pipes. So I took some new 1 1/4 inch water pipes, bent them, and welded them in here. These pipes that are coming from the neck end up here under the engine, and next we have pieces from the original frame. After I welded these pipes to the backbone and the pipes on which the engine is installed, I began to sew up the neck. I welded a small pipe connecting these two pipes together. To this small pipe between these two pipes, welded a 5mm plate, which goes from it to the steering neck. Inside between these three pipes, I welded a small triangle. Then to this triangle, to this plate, and to the neck pipe, I welded a thick spacer plate. Thus finished sewing up the steering neck. Then I bent a 1-inch pipe and welded it in here. It serves both a practical role for additional rigidity of the frame and a decorative one. Once the front section had been assembled and welded, it was time to move on to the rear section. Having installed the axle plates on a jig, I began to run these pipes to them. When building this frame, I was still unsure if the water pipes were strong enough. Therefore, I tried to implement the original pipes from the nipper frame as much as possible. So these frame pieces from here to here are original seamless nipper frame pipes. And from here to here, these are ordinary water pipes. Later I realized that I didn't have to act special and could have made this pipe all the way from a water pipe. I didn't want to weld this pipe directly to the axle ear, nor with a bend at the end. I wanted these pipes to be as close to the axle as possible. Therefore, due to the fact that the axle ear is tilted downwards, the lower pipe is welded directly to the axle ear, and I filled the space between the top pipe and the axle mount by welding in a 10mm plate. Having welded these pipes to the ears on both sides, All I had left to do is make these struts at the bottom and up top and weld this curved post in between them. When all this was done, the frame was basically ready. Let's briefly go over everything again. From the original nipper frame, we have the neck pipe and a backbone. To the latter, I welded 1¼ inch water pipes. I did up the steering neck and welded the strut on. Then to these pipes, I welded pieces of pipes from the original frame on which the engine's installed. Next, I installed the axle ears in a jig, welded the upper pipes on, and then welded on the lower pipes. Next, I made 3 struts, one at the bottom, one up top, and one in between them. Welded it all up, and pretty much the frame is ready. Welded everything with just a regular electrode welder using water pipes. I built the frame in 3 or 4 days with about 70% of the time spent for measuring with tape measures, rulers, calipers, and angle rulers. And about the several secrets I put into this frame when building it. This frame looks this way not by a happenstance. I thought through every curve in advance. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of vintage Harley Davidsons, especially panheads and knuckleheads. Long before I started building my frame, I was thinking about how to make it look more like a knucklehead frame. But a knucklehead frame has the front tube straight, and I couldn't forget about a wishbone frame that was installed on 48 to 54 panheads. So the front down pipes are not straight, but have a couple of beautiful bends. This way I decided to pay tribute not only to the straight leg Harley frame, but also to the wishbone frame, making these pipes with bends. So that's how I made this frame and what inspired me when building it. The video of the first ride will be coming out soon, but first I need to make the throttle handle. So the throttle will be a bit different than usual, and I don't want to install a factory throttle and go for a ride with it, because I know that if I install a factory throttle, I'll move on to something else and won't make the one I have in mind. That's it for today. See you next video.